Hi and welcome to jcyanlovsky.com. I'm Jay Yadlovsky. So I wanted to show you an image that I captured this morning and just walk you through how I do my post-processing on the image. So the image was caught with my Canon 60D at 1/250th of a second, f8, at an ISO of 400, and it was shot using the 18 to 135 kit lens that I have that came with my camera at 120 millimeters. So it was cloudy out this morning. It was nice and overcast, so the sky was acting like a big softbox, and I was just outside shooting some pictures, and was able to capture this picture here. So I'm just going to walk through how I would post-process it, and we'll see what we come up with. So let's see, the first thing I want to do is bring the image into my develop module here in Lightroom, and I'm just going to start going through the sliders here and see what we can get. So first, I think it needs to get brightened up a little bit, so let's bump it up a little bit, maybe about 0.75. Maybe that's a little much. Bring it back just a little bit, maybe 0.5. Alright, we'll start there, see how that works out. Contrast, I'm going to leave that at 0 because I'm going to bring this image over into Perfect Effects, and I'm going to use the dynamic contrast over in there. So I'm going to leave contrast at 0. And next, we'll pull back the highlights a little bit to kind of bring back a little bit of the detail in the bubble there. Maybe around minus 50. Looks alright. Shadows, let's see what we get here. Let's see, opens it up quite a bit. Brings them back. I almost like it brought down a little bit. So I'll just bring them down a little bit. Minus 11. Whites, so this was where how much whites are in the picture. If I hold the Option or Alt key as I adjust the white slider here, you'll see it shows you where the white clippings are. So once you get to a certain point going up, you'll see where all solid white will be in your picture. So I usually want to find, where you see some of the red or blue or white start to pop up here, and then just back this guy off a little bit here. So we'll try there. And then the same thing with the blacks. If you hold the Alt or Option key, it lets you see where you're going to clip the blacks as you bring it down a little bit. Maybe we can pull that down just a little bit more. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. So now I want to bring it over into Perfect Effects. And over there I'm going to do my sharpening, enhance the colors a little bit, work on the contrast. They got some great tools in Perfect Effects that you can use. So let's jump over there. So I'm going to go to the File menu here under Plugin Extras and Perfect Effects 8. And then we'll just give this a second to open up. I always find it interesting to capture images of bubbles. Sometimes you can get some really cool patterns or swirls and colors associated with the bubbles. When you take it on a sunny day, or if you do it on a day that's not so sunny, you get different effects and different things that you see in the bubbles. It's a fun thing to try if you've never tried it before. All right, so Lightroom is exporting the photo here. And the photo settings that it exports are taking the raw file, the DNG file that I have here in Lightroom, converts it to a PSD file at 300 dpi, or pixels per inch, and then it brings it over here into Perfect Effects 8. So now that this is loaded up, the first thing that I usually do is on my first blank layer here, let's open this guy out a little bit. My first empty layer, I'll go right to the dynamic contrast, and we'll put that on. I typically use natural, and we'll see how this enhances the image. And you can just see it really bring out the detail and the contrast. And one of the great things about the dynamic contrast filter here is this section down here called detail. And you have the ability to affect the different kinds of details that are in the image. So small, you can see if we just take this and let's just drag it all the way up, just so you can see what it affects. So all the smaller details, you can see all the little details in here really get brought out. And I think 100% is too much, but at least you can see or get the point of what it's doing. So let's bring that back. Let's try, I don't know, let's try it at 30, see what happens. Okay, medium, it's at 15, so I'll just drag it up to see what it affects. Okay, let's drag that back. It was at 15. Maybe we try it at 20. And then large, let's see what that affects. So that affects a little more of the background, the larger ones. I'm going to bring that down. Try just setting that at 0. Because I really want the focus to be on the flower in the bubble here. And it's kind of interesting that the flower, here is all in focus, but you can see right up here it starts to get blurred out a little bit, the edge of the bubble there. So the flower is our main element. We want that to be sharpest anyway. All right, so let's just see a little. So that's before the dynamic contrast. That's after. Maybe we even want to bring back the medium, tone that down a little bit. Let's bring that down to 10. See how that looks. All right. So let's leave that there for now. We're going to add another layer. I think maybe next we want to bring out some of the colors. So we got color enhancer here. We're going to select that. And let's try, let's see, there's all, you can see the different things here, sky enhancer, cooler, auto colors. And it's nice that it gives you a little preview so you can get a rough idea of how the image is going to be affected before you actually select the image. Let's just see the green enhancer. I'm curious to see how that affects the grass. I kind of like the green, more green on the grass there. So let's just try painting it out over the, or masking it out over top of the flower and just see how that looks. So I'm going to come up here and grab the mask brush, or the minus, and let's just paint that out. Just see how that looks. Kind of brings back that yellow instead of looking like a highlighter. Brings back that yellow of the dandelion. And if you use this right up here, if you check this perfect brush, what that does is essentially wherever you keep the center of the brush here, it won't go outside the boundary of the color that you're on. So it kind of just helps you, keep clean, tight edges and not go outside of your boundaries for your, in this case, like the petals. It's pretty helpful. So we'll just hit up around the edges here. Looks like maybe a little right in there. All right. I think that looks pretty good. So let's leave that. Now you can always drop the opacity of the layer. So we can keep the green enhancer and say if it feels like it's too much, say we dropped it down to, almost 50%. So you can see it boosts up the green, but it's, not too much, but it's still more than the original image. There you can see it's kind of yellowish. So if we bump that up, you can see the green. I like the contrast of this green versus the yellow a little bit better. And I dropped it to about 54%. We'll just make it an even 50%. I think that works pretty good. So next, let's add another layer here. Another one of the ones I like to use is down under here is sunshine. If you come under sunshine, you can try the different ones. A lot of times I'll start with natural and maybe use a sun glow. Sometimes the glow or the radiance. Just depends on what you think looks best. And remember, you can always tone back the amount of the effect by reducing the opacity of the layer. Warm highlights. And you can toggle it on and off just to see, how's it affecting it. It's not too bad. Let's try glow and see how that looks. So I kind of like how it brightened it up, but it definitely looks like it's too much. So let's just say I brought this back, let's say 30%. Let me select it here, 30%. Just toggle it on and off just to see from that to that. I kind of like how it warms it up a little bit. I might want to take it out on top of the flower here, so you can just copy a mask from one layer to the next, and to do that you would just hold your option key and then drag it up. And it should do it here. There we go. It's the shift key. Use the shift key to drag up your mask. So here it unmasks or masks over the flower. So you can see our flower stays the same, but everything else kind of gets warmed up around it. Maybe I'll even drop that back to, let's try 20%. just a little bit of a glow, a little bit of warming it up. Okay, I like that. So let's go add another layer. I usually add some sharpening here. So we'll go sharpening, and then I typically use the Amazing Detail Finder one right here. So I'll select that and kind of see how that sharpens everything up a bit. And you can really see it on the flower there. Everything kind of come real tack sharp there. And since we don't want the blurred areas sharpened, we can always just mask that out a little bit. So I'm going to deselect our perfect brush because I just want to mask the whole area. You can use the bracket keys to make your brush bigger there. And I'm just going to kind of paint around the background a little bit. Now you can see where the mask is if you hit Control and M. That'll bring up red, and reds are the areas that are masked out. So the layer effect will not be applied to the red areas. So we'll just paint around here a little bit. And I have this feathered at 50%. So we'll just come around here, brush this in a little bit. And I'll come down in the front here. Brush this out. We don't want to sharpen this. It's out of focus anyway, so there's no need to run sharpening on that. I'll just come up here a little bit closer to the stick. And then one thing I am going to do is shrink my brush a little bit, turn on the perfect brush. I'm going to zoom into these couple little strands sticking up. Actually, that one can stay, but these two here, since it looks like they should be more in focus than the background, I'll just include them with the sharpening. So I'm going to zoom in by pressing Command and plus. And sometimes when you have the layer mask turned on so you can see it in red here, it's going to move a little bit slower and kind of slow down the program a little bit. So I'm actually going to turn it off using Control M. Okay, so I'm just going to paint right along the blade of grass there, and I'll do the same on this one. And reduce the brush size a little bit more here. Okay, so I'm going to press Command 0 to zoom back out. I kind of like that. I think it's looking pretty good so far. Next thing I think I'll do is add a vignette around here just to help bring the focus right onto this flower here in the middle. So I'm going to come over here to Vignette, and I typically use either Big Softy or Subtle. So I'm going to try Big Softy first. I'll let that run in. So you can see that really helps you focus in right here, kind of like that. Might be a little too much, so again you can come over, click on your layer, and reduce the layer opacity a little bit. Maybe try 75%. Maybe even back a little bit more. Let's try 65%. Alright, I think I'm kind of liking that. Now, if you look through the different filters here, there's all kinds of different things you can do. Everything from black and whites to glows to grunge to HDR look. Sometimes you can add in a little HDR just to gain a little extra sharpness and just drop the layer opacity way back. We can just try it real quick to see what it would look like and see if we think the image needs it. So let's just try natural, for example. And I would drop it back to maybe, let's just try 50%. It does help bring out more detail there in the flower a little bit, which is kind of nice. So let's just see between turning it on and off. It's debatable. You could go either way. I think for now I'm just going to leave that off. I'll actually get rid of that. So we'll just hit the little delete layer icon down here. And then we're all set. And the last thing to do is just click apply down here. And that's going to bring it back into Lightroom. It'll apply the filters that we put on the image. And it'll bring it right back into Lightroom. And then we'll have our final image. And we can export it or do whatever we need to with it. So that's kind of how I would edit this image. I thought it was a pretty cool shot. It was just out playing in the yard and looking for something good to photograph. And As my daughter was playing with bubbles, this happened to land right in front of a dandelion, was able to get this picture, and I think by bringing it into Lightroom, making a few minor adjustments, and then bringing it into Perfect Effects here to really help enhance the overall image, we've really been able to make a nice image. Now sometimes based on the file size and the amount of filters that you apply to the file, it might take a minute or so for the layers and the filters and everything to actually get applied to your image and for it to go back into Lightroom. And once both images come back into Lightroom, you can see here's the before image with our slight Lightroom adjustments, and here's our after image after running it through Perfect Effects 8. See, there's quite a difference, and I think it came out really well.